All right, everybody, welcome back to the 1% Baseball Podcast with Garrett and Sean. It's been about a week or so. Been a busy week or so. We actually wrapped up the season for the 14U team. Had a chance to play a couple of tournaments out of town. Fared decently well at a higher level. But before we get into that, Garrett, Sean, how are you guys doing?
Doing good. Just got back from Vegas.
Had a
good time. Got to enjoy some time off. Just resetting, getting ready for the summertime, getting to kind of recap the spring. We're about to jump into exit meetings this upcoming weekend. So there's a chance for us to sit down with players, parents, talk about, how the season went, what we thought was good, what we didn't think was good. Just honestly be as open and brutally honest as possible, right? And give the truth without any emotions in it, so that guys can really get a sense of like, hey, this is really where I'm at. No fluff, no, hey, it's okay. No, just like straight up, like this is what you need to do to be a better baseball player. So we love that. It's a good time for us. It's a good time for our players too. So.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest thing, right? Is like we got to give them some sort of sense of direction as to why they played or didn't play or opportunities and stuff like that, right? Because the moment they start to understand it, and that's the biggest thing too, is like when you have that communication and you give them that sense of direction, like they start to see things a little bit more holistic, like from our standpoint, rather than just from them getting upset they're not playing, right? So now they kind of understand what they need to do, and again, it's not always about hitting, right? Like that's what we want guys to understand, right? Like being a good teammate, having competitive at-bats, are all things that we look at in terms of like the development in guys' future. So we're excited.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think as a parent, we can all agree that the truth is important, right?
Yeah.
There's no need for any bullshit, I guess.
Yeah.
But all right, we've got a great quote of the day. Garrett, want to go ahead and spit that one out?
Absolutely. It's by Eric Thomas. If you don't know who Eric Thomas is, one of the motivational speakers in sports and just life in general right now. Pretty solid dude. Go listen to his stuff. But his quote of the day, and the one that we're going to use, is do not be upset with the results you didn't get, with the work you did not do. I put a post on that a couple weeks ago. I think it resonates with us a lot, especially with the brand of 1%. Man, all we can ask guys to do, all we can ask ourselves to do on a daily basis is just get 1% better, right? We've got to do the work to be growing at a slow pace. And at a step-by-step mindset, right? 1% every single day. So when we look back in a year, we're 365% better, right? Rather, if I miss days, if I fall out of my routine, if I lose my focus, if I don't do the work, how can I be upset with the results I get in game if it's not what I want to see, right? Like you earn that. You earn everything you get out of this game, out of life, out of your craft. You're going to earn that based off of what you do prior, right? That's kind of what we're going to dive into today. Like we're going to jump, kind of veer into more of the weight room side. Recently, so like for us right now, our summer guys, our high school guys, we're going to be lifting every single week, right? And the reason I wanted to bring this up and jump into the weight room stuff and just talk about that was like these guys are so illiterate when it comes to the weight room. Like youth and high school guys are so illiterate just in terms of like what should be being done in the weight room. Like, I would be surprised if there was actually like 2 to 3 guys in our organization that actually knew what they were doing, right? So it kind of goes with that quote, kind of goes with that in terms of like, we've got to do the work to earn the results that we want at the end of the
day. And what better time to get 1% better than the off season?
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
I don't think it matters. I don't think you can let it matter. I think, especially when you're looking at youth sports, like you've got to be okay doing stuff and doing things even when you're in season, because the game is so competitive now.
Well, I mean, that's what it is, though. But like, you have aspirations to play college baseball, play professional baseball, like
so
most kids do. But at the end of the day, is like you got to get used to going in there on Thursday mornings and lifting before. A lot of people say, well. And I was kind of this kid because I didn't know any better, right? It's like, oh, well, I play today. Like, I don't want to lift and get sore. Well, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you do the right things and you structure it and you have an idea of what you're doing and going. And therefore, like, there's a good amount that can come out of that, right? But it's like you want to play at the next level. Like, you're going to have to lift when you're sore, right? Like, not every day you're going to be feeling 100%. Like, you think those guys that are playing in conference tournaments right now, like, they feel good? Like, bullshit. Like, their feet are probably killing them right now from playing all year, right? But they're still forced to get in there probably 2-3 times a week and get after it, right? Because the biggest thing is going to keep you healthy and keep you performing, especially, like, as you get into the latter part of the year, right? Because that's the biggest thing that guys – that hurts guys is they don't get in there in season, and then they get to the back end of the season, and now their batting average drops and their production goes to shit, and then they end up having an okay year after they start off super great because they're just brittle. They're not ready to go.
And let's be honest, y'all never did a lot of chest, right?
We tried to.
Chest and tries this morning, actually. So
Tried to. Oh, God.
I'm messing with you. So I guess talk about what goes in to putting together your weightlifting program. You know, what kind of load should you be looking for? Is it, what sort of rest should you be trying to achieve? Is it dexterity? Is it lean muscle? Is it, what are you doing to train your guys to get them better for the fall?
So, I mean, that's tough. I don't think I can give you a clear answer there, because I think that's when we start kind of just like cookie cutting, like what weight room stuff should look like per individual. Both of us were very fortunate to be able to train. He was able to train in 2 different weight room environments in his college time, and then also had a really good high school coach. We talked about that this morning, who structured their workouts in high school, off season and in season, very, very well. And I was kind of in the same boat, did some stuff in high school, nothing really super like refined. Because I think even when I was growing up, in high school, there was still some, I guess, pushback on the weightlifting side. Like, I remember my high school coach, very good baseball guy. Obviously, everybody that's in this area probably knows who he is. Solid guy. But he used to tell me all the time, like, dude, you're lifting too much. Like, you don't need to be doing that. Like, you're a pitcher. Like, don't do that. I need you to be ready to throw. So nowadays that's changing. Like, the pitchers honestly lift more than the hitters do.
Yeah, go look at Ben Joyce. The guy benches 345. So the days of, like, pitchers shouldn't bench, that's over. It's been proven now at this point that lifting iron, right, not so much bands, but lifting heavy shit is the fastest way to get your body in the right.
If you don't know who Ben Joyce is, he's the guy that throws 105 for Tennessee. He's like the hardest, like literally the hardest throwing person in the world right now.
Yeah.
Like, he's throwing even harder than MLB guys are on a consistent basis, like per average.
I think his deadlift is crazy too,
It's
right?
like 675 or something like that. Like, dude, that's insane weight. Like, it's stupid.
Yeah.
But like for me, super fortunate. Like, got to live in high school a little bit, learned a little bit there. Worked with a really good guy in Incarnate Word when I was there my only year. Then got to train in the JUCO route type of like weightlifting stuff, which is kind of just like get as big and as strong as you can with whatever means possible. And then got to train at UTSA under Coach Rick, who was there before ST was. And then I got to watch ST work with those guys. So I got to see a lot of different, I guess, philosophies and also like modalities in the way that they like created the athletes that they had. And some people take other things important, right? Like you'll listen to one coach and he's going to say like, hey, you shouldn't do bench press. You shouldn't do barbell bench press because that's going to mess up your shoulder for throwing. Some coaches and some people will say no overhead pressing for athletes. Some people will say back squat is better than front squat. But if you really look at it, like to me, especially at this age, like nobody, especially from the high school and down level, should pre-impose some philosophy of what's right and what's wrong, because I think it's trial and error for everybody. And so I think that if we do that, we limit guys in terms of movement patterns and learning different movement quality and like how to move weight, how to be efficient with my body, all that stuff. Because I've even noticed that with me. Like I will start to see when I change, and this was when I was playing, when I would change and do different exercises, it was the same type of lift, like deadlift or squat, right? But then we changed the way we're doing it, the way that we're loading the weight, whether it's front squat, back squat, hack squat, right? We're doing all these different things. But when you go back to a different lift, like you've discovered how to move a little bit differently, and now you've loaded different muscles, and now we're getting stronger and creating that stimulus and adaptation curve, right? Which is the biggest thing. So to kind of answer that, like I think it's difficult to just say like, we have to lift like this. You have to do it like this.
And it's hard to put a time frame on it too, because there's so much room. Like you'll see guys like over the course of the year, like guys adapt things so much differently, right? But it's like there's so many benefits from it. There's a guy on our 16U team. He came over when we brought this team over in the fall. He came over and started to train with us in the lesson side of things. And so he came over, and I remember the first few lessons, like, he had some good stuff. Like, he was an athletic kid, but, like, the way he hit was not athletic at all, right? So we put blast on him, and so we're looking at his time to contact. And we were talking about this morning. I already had a conversation with this kid about it. And so 4, 5, 6 months ago, we put him on blast, and his time to contact, on average, right, was 0.2 to 0.21, which is slow as shit.
Like, really good hitters is 0.13 to 0.15. Like,
exactly, especially at this level, right? So it's like we told him, like, dude, like, we got to find a way for you to be more explosive. And the kid had never really been in the weight room. Well, kind of going into this season in the spring, like, he kind of bought in a little bit more to being in the weight room. And so, yeah, we've worked on some movement deficiencies and stuff and lessons. But you pair that with the weight room now he's getting in there and he's averaging 0.14 on time to contact. Right? So now you see his BP, like, it's astronomically better because from the hitting side, like, he's forced to have to cheat to baseballs out in front. That's why he swung and missed, and, like, he was early as shit on everything he was at in the boxes, because he's forced, because that time to contact is so slow, his brain's trying to get the barrel to contact, but he has to cheat to everything out in front. So there's so many different benefits, and we can go into so many different levels, but yeah, there's definitely a mislinkage in terms of guys understanding what the importance is, first of all.
Yeah. So I guess let me rephrase that a little bit. And I'm probably thinking more of your 14 to 16 versus your 16 to 18, who's maybe done it a little bit more. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's for everybody. But what should they avoid doing in terms of, let's not hurt ourselves, like, let's not overwork ourselves? You know, is there a method there, some indicators there that they should be looking to take advantage of or avoid?
Yeah, I mean, I would, like, when I started to think about that, like, it's all about workload capacity, right? So, like, we have to build up the workload capacity. I kind of view it the same thing as throwing, right? If a new athlete comes in to throw with me, I'm not going to get in there and throw a 60-pitch bullpen or jump straight into pull downs like day one. Like, we have to build that up, right? So I don't think that there's any, like, my thing that I told myself was, like, dude, you've got to find your, like, breaking point. Like, you got to find your point that's like, okay, I'm doing too much, right? Because I don't think anybody ever finds that. Like, look at Kobe Bryant. Like, look at the stuff that guy did. Like, you listen to him talk. Like, the dude worked out like 3 to 4 times a day. You know what I mean? And so to say that there's some point that we're doing too much, like, I think that's different for every individual. So I think from a weightlifting side, when we talk just purely weightlifting, like, what I would say is don't go in there and, like, straight up just, like, start, like, maxing out day one, right? Like, start light, start to move through motion, right? Zach Deacon, right? Or DeChamp? I think it's Deacon. I think I say it wrong all the time. Zach Deacon is a TCU strength coach for their baseball program. I read his book, Movement Over Maxes, and he is a firm believer in pure, like, movement quality. Like, he would 100% take a guy being able to do a 135-pound front squat with ideal movements, ideal patterning, using the posterior chain perfectly, than the guy that can back squat 315, but it looks like shit, right? So it's like being able to use that in the quality of the movement over the quantity of reps or the quantity of weight. We want to have that quality of movement, but you got to start somewhere, right? Like, you got to get in there and start doing it. You got to start lifting. You got to start going about your business that way. And so for me, like, I would say, like, to answer your question, like, it can't be just like I'm jumping in and I'm, like, going crazy day one, right? Like, start to move through your compound lifts. Squat, some variation of the squat, some variation of a deadlift, a variation of a press, whether that's bench press, weighted push-ups, whether that's, like, reverse push-ups, right? Like, anything like that, like some sort of pressing motion, and then some sort of pulling motion, right? Whether that's overhead pulls or some sort of rows, like something like that. If you can add those in there, and then you add in, like, a subtle some sort of variation of that movement that's, like, isolating some muscles there, like, that's a good start. You know what I mean? Like, I would say a rep range for a lot of younger guys, like, The rep range that we're going to work out in this summer is going to be max 250 reps a day. And then at the minimum, it's going to be 150, right? So we're moving through different cycles and different phases of our training that we're going to have. And basically, like, we're going to start with endurance with lighter weight to start to get these guys to get more reps and to build up that workload capacity. And then as we decrease reps, the weight is going to increase. So we have this like consistent up and down movement and flow of like weight and reps to where we're always pushing the weight higher. But then as that weight goes back down, the reps go back up, right? So we're just kind of moving these guys through different rep ranges and getting them to experience, different just training cycles, if you will.
And the thing is, too, is like being in the weight room and moving weight and stuff, that's when you're really going to start to see like what your movement patterns are, right? Because the majority of athletes struggle with pelvic stability and lower half stability and just being strong in the legs, right? So being able to get in the weight room, that's how guys are going to start to see themselves like using their legs a little bit better and stabilizing the core to be able to throw and hit and do all the stuff that we talk about.
Yeah, and like the big reason that we wanted to jump in this, like we had a kid talk to us because they're, like I said at the beginning of this, they are illiterate. Like, it is wild how many guys don't know like what they're doing. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I know everything. In college, I was a little bit more in tune with it because I knew I needed to be. Now I'm not as focused on it. But that's why we're going to hire somebody. Like, the next hire we have is going to be a strength and conditioning guy because it is the secret. Like, anybody that's listening right now, anybody that's hearing this podcast, listen. The secret to getting your son to be what you want him to be is being in the weight room. Flat out. Like, we've said it before, that is the 100% absolute secret to becoming a better baseball player. Like, all the hitting lessons, all the baseball practice, all the games that you go to is a waste of time, in my opinion. Now, it's getting you better, and you have to do that. But, like, the bulk of your growth, like, here's 15% from all the baseball stuff you do. You've got a whole 85% that you're not even tapping into. Like, it is the secret for me. It's the secret for most guys. Like, anybody that starts talking about, like, from our perspective or older that's still playing baseball, like, they would probably say the same exact thing. It's like the physical strength is what allows me to play the game.
And the next thing, too, is, like, not everyone's going to have access to be able, especially younger guys, not everyone's going to have access to be able to just go lift whenever they want, right? So one of the things that we're going to start to do going into the fall when we actually test and retest and do a little bit more, like, development stuff in the hitting and throwing side is we're going to do med ball training, right? So I'm working right now on writing a 16-week med ball training cycle that our goal is that we can hopefully sell out to the public and use that in the same way, right? Because the biggest thing, too, is, like, what's so great about med ball, it's a little bit more open of an exercise, meaning it's more dynamic, right? So you can actually make the same throwing and hitting motion that you would make with your body and start to see your body move a little bit better because you're obviously adding a super overload implement, right? Like, if you see a guy take a swing off a tee, like, 9 times out of 10, if you give him a 10-pound med ball and you say, throw this as hard as you can right through my chest, like, you're going to see their body move a little bit better, just with the sole focus of the intent, right? So that's something, too, that we're going to implement. And if you don't have access to a weight room, like, highly suggest getting on a med ball program and getting some med balls because you can reap a lot of the same benefits, too, with that.
Yep.
Well, some folks, I want to make this clear. Some people will say, well, Randy Johnson didn't work out or Babe Ruth or Nolan Ryan, they weren't.
Yeah, bro.
But guess what? Those are called
1980s.
Yeah, those are also called outliers, right? They're like people those people are going to exist in the world, but maybe nobody listening to this podcast has a son or a daughter.
If your son's not throwing 90 miles an hour and not hitting like absolute tanks right now, like, your son's not the outlier, brother. Like, this is the truth. And don't use puberty as a back end to that to say, like, oh, he hasn't hit puberty. Like, I hit puberty and nothing changed. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fact. Like, and it happened, and everybody told me, like, this, oh, dude, this is, like, exactly what, like, why we need to talk about this is, like, everybody told me, my dad even, because we didn't know better, but my dad was always like, and coaches were like, hey, just, like, when puberty happens, like, it's going to happen. It's going to come. It's going to come. It's going to come. Well, I get to senior year of high school, and I would say by then at least I hit some puberty, right? And I'm like, bro, I ain't throwing 90 miles an hour. Like, what's going on, So, like, dude, the secret is in the weight room, and you got to get committed to it. Here's the thing. The hard part and the reason that everybody puts it off asks more questions, tries to come up with an excuse like, oh, I don't want my son to get hurt. You know why you use those excuses is because it's uncomfortable to learn it and it's uncomfortable to start. The consistency factor is challenging, right? So the easy thing to do is say, oh, I don't want my son to get hurt. I'm going to wait. Well, okay, wait. And then wait another year, and then wait another year, and then you're going to look up his junior year and you'll be dissatisfied with the results you haven't gotten because you haven't done any work to get yourself there, right? And so we've got to start to instill like at least some sort of like awareness in the weight room. Like get your son in there, dude. Like everything that you do, even in baseball, like everybody that's a baseball person listening to this probably didn't know a lot about baseball when they first started. Like you learn stuff over time. You find out what works for you over time. So you resisting yourself from starting is just holding yourself back and your son back even longer to getting to where they want to become, right? Getting to that next point. So like we had a conversation with the dude today talking about kind of the same stuff, asking questions on what they do in the weight room. He's like, yeah, like I go into the weight room and I just do like machines and then like I go do like heavy squat and heavy bench press at the end for like a test. Like I'm just like I'm pushing myself. I'm getting myself to be mentally stronger. And I was just like, what? Like what are you doing, bro? Like, dude, like why do you? I literally asked him like, why do you do that? And that's what his response was I do it because I want to get mentally stronger. I'm like that's the wrong way to get mentally stronger, brother. Like, go meditate or something like that. Ain't helping.
Go sit in a cold tub. That'll do it.
Well, probably a good chance for some goal setting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to work out, good chance for some benchmarking, some goal setting, because you can measure, max, you can measure reps, and if you're throwing or hitting, if you're on blast or whatever, I mean, you can see deliverables, right? So,
yeah.
And
the shit's addictive too, right? Because like some of the guys on our older teams, like we've had some pretty heart-to-heart conversations with them about like, look, dude, like you've got you move well, like baseball-wise, you're fine, right? But you're 105 pounds, right? Like it's gonna be very hard for you to get recruited or for you to even last all summer.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you don't put some weight on and get a little bit more physically stronger, right? So, like, these guys that we've had these conversations with, like, they start to see the benefits happen, right? They go in there, they start to put some weight on, they see themselves, like, hitting baseballs a little bit harder, throwing them a little bit harder, and now they're, like, 100% bought in, right?
Yeah.
So, like, it doesn't take long for you to kind of see that, right? Even if it's little, whether it's you, like, feeling your body a little bit better, or you start to see the results happen on the field. Like once you see that happen, like that's when the buy-in starts to just take care of itself.
Well, this is what you got to be careful of too. Like we tell people to do it, and we say it's a secret, right? And then guys do it for 3 months, and they look at their game, and they're like, I haven't gotten better, so this must be a waste of time. You got to believe in what you're doing, but you also, it's everything that we say. You can't have the expectations of results today. Like it is a day-by-day process. Like it is a day-to-day. Like do it for 2 years, do it for 3 years, and then look back at where you're at. You know what I mean? Like if you walk in to get into the weight room with the expectation of like, I go 2 weeks to the gym and I do some biceps and I look in the mirror and I look at my biceps and I'm like, I'm not bigger. Like, dude, you've done it for 2 weeks. Yeah. Like, have you listened to a bodybuilder talk? Like, we're not bodybuilding these guys, but have you listened to how long that guy's probably been in the weight room and been on the routine that this guy's on? Probably for the past 5 years, 10 years of his life, if not more, So, like, these guys have to understand, kids have to understand, like, dude, I can't get attached to results so much. I just got to get attached to the process. I've got to get attached to loving that day-to-day work and just knowing that, hey, if I stay routine on this, the weight room is the secret, but it's not going to happen today. But if I can do this day after day after day and let it become monotonous, let it become routine, let it become just another part of who you are as a person, and I'm just going to do it every single day. When you look up and you're a senior in high school, you're going to be very pleased with where you're at. You will be 100% pleased. But the problem is, guys, it's uncomfortable. Lifting weights is not fun. It will become fun once you get to that point. But at first, it's uncomfortable. It's not easy. You know what I mean? Like you're adding load and stress to your body. People don't like stress. Nobody likes stress. Everyone wants to live these nice, comfortable lives and just like relax. Like stress is something that you have to get adapted to, even physical stress. But once you get consistent with that, and then it becomes easier to get in there. So like for us, and I'll dive into this because I think it's just something for parents and even players to learn. is like how we're going to schedule our lifts and how we're going to do it. And kind of what you said, Silver, was like diving into like being able to basically track this stuff. Is I would say it like this: pick a list. Like if you want to do a 3-day split, right, to where it's a full body split every single day that you lift. So let's say on a perfect schedule, if you're training 3 days and you're doing a full body workout, it would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? If you're a guy that wants to do 5 days a week and you want to split it up to where it's like, I got chest and tri this day, I got back and by this day, I've got legs this day, and then I'm going to take off. I'm going to go those next 3 days, right? Whatever that is, you pick a workout and write a workout for every single one of those lifting days, right? 6 exercises, 7 exercises, 3 sets of 10, whatever, 3 sets, whatever, however many sets and however many exercises that you want to do, right? And you track that stuff. So you come in day 1, and like how we're going to do it is we're going to have three types of phases. We're going to have endurance, hypertrophy, and then strength, right? Endurance is just as it sounds, like we're creating endurance of the muscle. We're kind of fatiguing it a little bit. We're forcing ourselves to keep recruiting muscle under tension, right? Hypertrophy is going to be more muscle building, like I'm using more so like creating blood flow, but it's a little bit heavier reps, so it's going to be a little bit more stress on the body, but still high enough reps to create muscle building. And then strength is where we're going to drop the weight down, but then we're going to add more weight to it, to where we're having to recruit that muscle to be able to push the weight and repeat the rep, right?
Drop the reps down.
Yep. So we're dropping the reps down, increasing weight. Dropping reps down, increasing weight when you get to strength. But we're going to go through that cycle every 2 weeks. So we're going to be 2 weeks endurance, 2 weeks hypertrophy, 2 weeks strength. And then we're going to go through it again. 2 weeks endurance, 2 weeks hypertrophy, 2 weeks strength, right? So these guys are going to go through that 12-week cycle all summer long. And we're going to work through those different rep ranges. But you could do this for, hey, I'm going to do a 3-month cycle of these lifts and this weight, and I'm going to slowly be building those numbers up and pulling them down whenever I go back to the endurance cycle, right, to where I'm building myself up to be able to handle more weight, handle more reps. But the secret is you start, like the easy way to do it is just like, hey, I'm going to pick these exercises for this day, and I'm going to do those at this rep range, and I'm going to increase the weight by a little bit. Go to 10 reps, right? I'm going to drop the reps again to 6 and increase the weight some more, right? And then I'm going to go back to endurance. I'm going to increase that weight that I started that last endurance cycle at, right? And so it's just like that tracking method gives you something to where, one, it's routine. Because I would not be surprised if guys go into the weight room and they don't know what they do. Like they just walk in there and they're like, you know what? The preacher curl machine's open over there. I might go do that. I might do a couple sets. It looks like, the hack squat's over. I'm going to go over there and do no, dude, you need to know what you're doing. You walk into the gym with a plan, walk in knowing what you're going to do, what weight you're going to do, how many reps, how many sets, what your rest time is going to be, all of that stuff. Because it gives you something to track and go for, but it keeps it routine. It keeps it detailed. And so as you do that, obviously you're going to get to a point to where you plateau and it's like, I can't go up any more weight. Well, then that's when you deload. You maybe take a week off. You maybe take a couple of days off. Maybe you rewrite an entire new program for every single day that you lift, right? Legs, chest and tri, back and by, right? And you write a whole new one and you start from somewhere in the middle, right? Somewhere that's comfortable that you can build back up and try and beat that plateau and break through that. That's all it takes, dude. Don't make it hard. Just get in there and do stuff. And if something hurts, guess what you do? Don't do that. do something different. Change the exercise. If you have a problem, when you go to back squat and there's some pain on the anterior side of your legs, or there's some pain in the lower back, okay, dude, don't do that. Do something.
Get on the leg press machine.
Yeah.
But don't use that as an excuse. I hear so many people are like, "Oh, well, I don't want to hurt myself. Oh, I don't want to get hurt, right? Whatever that is, right? I already have pain. Okay, dude, well, find a variation that you don't have pain, or drop the weight, right? Because you know why you have pain? It's because you suck at moving. You don't move good. You know why your lower back hurts? Because you don't know how to hinge at the hips. Because you fucking use your back. That's why. So maybe you need to drop the weight and actually figure out how to move and make it not hurt, and then start to add the weight. Because movement quality, to me, in my head, this is what I went to school for. If I was going to be a baseball player, I was going to be what we call a prehabilitative doctor, right? Somebody that prehabs so that we don't get hurt. And like, to me, it's like the thing that we learn in school is like the reason guys get hurt is because they don't take care of their bodies and do the things that they need to. Like all the guys that we get lower back pain with, or guys that are getting hurt in high school right now, it's like, well, I think that happens because you don't know how to move. Now there's some coaches that are hurting that, right? Coaches are adding too much weight on guys and pushing guys too much to where they're not getting the proper coaching that they need to get to move better. But hey, if it hurts, like stop, figure out how to move that better, and then build it back up.
Well, that's the biggest thing too. Is like just because like you're hurting doing one variation of a lift, like there's a million different ways to squat.
Yeah.
There's a million different ways to load your body to use the legs, right? And so like you get to college, like your lower back hurts. You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna modify it. They're gonna make you do goblet squat or some variation of a different movement where you're still attacking the same muscle group. So like you being hurt or a certain exercise hurting you is not an excuse to not lift that certain group.
Yep.
You still got to find a way and say, okay, well, if it hurts doing back squat, like I'm going to do dumbbell lunges or something that's going to alleviate me still getting the same load and the same work, but not in the same area, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing I just said, though. It's like because it's progressions and regressions. We progress guys when they start to do stuff better. They start to feel better with their body. And we regress guys when they're getting to a point where they can't. And it's not that difficult. It's the same thing I said. Like, okay, if you're hurting at that much weight, like what happens if we drop the weight? Does it hurt if we drop the weight? No. Okay. Well, probably because there is something within your movement where you're not stimulating and firing the right muscles or using the right muscles. So let's drop the weight. Let's get those muscles stronger and slowly build you up rather than being like, what's the word? What's the phrase? Like, ego lifting, right? And like, oh, I'm around my fucking boys. Like, I'm gonna put 350 pounds on my back when you can't even truly like back squat 135. And that's what I told him. Like, we've already had that conversation. I was like, don't let these guys ego lift. Yeah. Like, we walk in there because he's gonna be lifting with them in the summer. And I'll show up every once in a while, but he's gonna go with them. I'm like, don't let these guys ego lift. Like, if somebody looks like shit doing something, like, stop. Like, you're not gonna help yourself.
And
like,
that's the biggest thing is right. Like, even in college, like guys want to get. They want to let the egos and the alpha male mentality come out in the wrong way, right? Like guys need to start at a very base level, and then like you said, like once guys start to move really well and can master 135 or 95, right? Like or even the bar for some people. Once you can master that and learn how to move, that's when you'll start to see like your weight astronomically increase, right? It's very very hard to build that consistency if your lower back wants to give out every time you put 225 on the bar.
Yeah. Well, my favorite exercise is farmer carry.
Yeah.
And even if you don't got weights, you can get two trash bags full of water. You can get and farmer carry that outside. That'll help kids.
I think that we got to do that stuff too. Like I tried to do it. I don't know if you were with us yet.
I wasn't.
I tried to do some stuff. It kind of went by the wayside just because we didn't have the manpower to be able to like keep it consistent or do what we needed to. But I think that like we should be doing like farmer carry challenges like with the teams. You know what I mean? Like just stuff like that towards like full body movements, like dynamic movements, but we're loading guys. Like whether that's like we're doing like push up stuff, whether we're doing like row stuff, whether we're doing farmer carries, we're doing stuff like with loaded movements because that's at least, especially in the 13 and 14 guys, it is going to give them some sort of growth, whether they know it or not, right? At first, again, we're not going to see anything at first. You're not going to see any results at first. You're not going to see it for a year. If you can get okay knowing that, hey, I need to do this for 1.5 to 2 years and know that I'm probably not going to get anything out of it, but I'm going to do it because I know that at some point it's going to break through. Like, There's a video rolling around on Instagram right now where that guy talks about that. There's a dude that was on that Tommy Bilo or whatever his name is. Is like the one of those famous interview guys that does some stuff that we do. But this guy was talking on his show and he was basically saying like, if I know in my head, in my brain, I know that the thing that I am doing is at some point going to turn into the success I am going to have and is going to get me to where I want to be, I'm going to be committed to that process. But when I expect that today it's going to happen today, I go look in the mirror today and I expect myself to be bigger, and you don't get that stimulation in your brain, you're going to stop doing it because you're like, oh, it's not working. Well, you got to know, brother, that it's not going to happen today. But if in the back of your head, you know, at some point at some point something's going to click and something's going to actually you're going to start to reap those benefits, but you do it anyways. On the days that you're not getting those results, that's whenever you become committed to the process and you're truly going to get the benefits.
Well, that's the idea, right? Like, you commit to the process over the results. Like, that's how you build a consistency. That's how you get in there day in, day out, because you know what you're going for, rather than you not hitting the numbers that you necessarily want on max day. You build that consistency by being addicted to the process and sticking with that day in and day out.
It becomes a part of your process.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we got a couple minutes left, and I think this has been great. And then, folks, if you have questions, remember, you can always hit us up on YouTube, on Facebook, ask questions. And the more questions that we get, the better we can serve you guys with info. So please don't hesitate to reach out on that front.
Yep.
A lot of you already do. The one thing I wanted to talk about the last thing I want to talk about before we leave, and just real quick, is why are you guys doing exit interviews? Why should other folks be doing it? And what is it? How does it wrap up the year and prepare you for the season, or prepare you for the next?
The reason I did it, well, they do it in college. They do it in high school too. Not every high school, but they do it in college for sure. It's an opportunity to look back and have to force a player to recap the year, and truly understand why things went the way they did. Because a lot of kids, especially kids that are not mature, mentally mature, they get a certain result, or they play a certain way, or they don't get the playing time they want, and they look at it as they don't look at the truth. They don't look at the objective sides of it, right? They more so just look at poor me, or I suck, or I did great. We want to be objective, right? So that as we move forward, right, as we move forward into the next season, we have something to work on. We have something to actually tangibly try to get better at, so that we are growing in the process, right? At the same time, it's an opportunity for us to tell them, hey, this is what you're doing really good, and this is your best part of your game, and this is where you're going to really thrive in baseball at some time. But if you want to be able to get this, or you want to be able to achieve this, this is why you're getting held back, and this is what you need to do better, right? And it's also an opportunity, because some parents, we tell everybody, hey, if you have something that you want to talk about, if you have questions, if you need something, come to us. But some parents in the middle of the season feel like that's taboo. We are very open at all times for people to come talk to us, but the biggest thing is that's an opportunity too for parents to be able to voice concerns, or to say good things, bad things, whatever that is, and just a chance for us to all recap individually and give that value to a player to where they know, hey, brother, we're on board with you. But right now in this moment, these next 30 minutes, this next 45 minutes, I'm going to be as brutally honest as I can, so that we're not pushing fluff, we're not pushing these fake ideologies onto you, but you know exactly what you're going to have to do to get better, to be able to achieve the results you want one day.
And I think the next thing too is, right, it's going to give them a sense of direction of what they need to focus on, right? Some guys don't need to work on two-strike hitting or taking walks, stuff like that, because they already do a really good job of it. But it's going to give them, like I said, a sense of what they need to attack on. Because, these 13 and 14s, we're not going to see them till when? August, September, right around then. So it's there's a lot of time for them to come back a new player. But if they don't know what they need to be working on, right, it's only holding them back. Right? So, again, and the biggest thing I like about them is it forces guys to be in tune with what they're doing in the season that they had, right? Nothing's more irritating than when you ask a guy, why didn't you play this weekend? Why don't you think you played? Well, I don't know. Well, that tells me you're not really locked into, one, what you're doing, but also, where this team's at. So if we can get guys to buy into that, of, where they're at in terms of, value to the team in every aspect, right? Not just hitting, not just pitching, but how much value they're giving us a chance to win, that's only going to help them out moving down the road. Mm-hmm.
Well, amen. Well, appreciate you guys. Thank you, Andy, again, for letting us use your beautiful office to host the podcast. Next podcast, guys, we will have some umpires on, and we'll do a little Q&A with some umpires.
They're going to be happy because there's not going to be any parents yelling at them.
I might step aside on this one. No, you guys be good. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks, guys.